Georgia is trying to rip your head off. That's a quote from an article from Bruce Feldman, who's been reporting about college football for a very long time. And in the article, Bruce is talking about Dan Mullen's situation at Florida and the comparisons made between the Gators and Dogs and just where Florida's at in terms of their play, as well as where Georgia's at. And I wanted to talk about it a little bit because you got a situation at Georgia where this a team that when you're on the field and you watch them play, uh, it's surprising when someone gets a 5 yard play and that they're trying to rip your head off. I mean, that's one way to put it, but I'd say they're trying to rip the ball out too. I mean, that's the other problem is that you just there's no way to be safe with anything. We're talking about a program that's not permitted 2 touchdowns. Well, they've permitted 2 touchdowns. They've not allowed 14 points because they blocked the kick. The extra point. It's hard to reconcile after we've been lectured to by everybody, including people like me, that you have to score to win. And I'm just doing the math very quickly here. Georgia doesn't even have 60 points scored against them in 8 games. Only twice, excuse me, 3 times this season have they reached double digits. The other team. It's just you kind of expect a cheap score at some point, but it doesn't happen. And it's just it's really nasty. And the mentality that these guys are trying to rip your head off, I mean, that's the mindset of this defense. When you watching N'Kobe Dean fly around like a rocket ship, and Jordan, basically saying within 2 footsteps either way, his footsteps, you're not going to run the ball for more than 2 yards, or the speed at which Chris Smith gets to the ball, or the outside pressure from guys like Adam Anderson or whoever, Quay Walker, Robert Beal's out there, Devontae Wyatt on the edge. You got Trayvon Walker, a guy that is probably going to be certainly a top 100 pick, if not a first round pick in the near future. Um, the difference between this defense and defenses we've seen in the past in college football is noticeable. I don't try to do too much hyperbole. I was talking with someone who's covered college football for a while yesterday, and they said that this defense, the only team that you could really compare it to is the 2001 Miami defense, and that was a heck of a, you know, that team won the national championship. Now they were not challenged. They were not challenged in that um, national championship game because they were dealing with a not very good Nebraska team that backed their way in to the national championship after losing to Colorado by like 100 point, 62-36. They lost to Colorado on the. It didn't. I think it just that they should not have been playing for it. But that Miami team did not really have a close game that season. Now they allowed. Well, they had the Virginia Tech game at the end. They almost lost on the road. They won that game by 2 points, but they allowed more points than Georgia. But here are some of the players on that defense that you'll probably remember: Ed Reed, Vince Wilfork, uh, Jonathan Vilma. These guys, Antro Roll, Sean Taylor. These guys were stars. I mean, these guys were, some of them, NFL Hall of Famers or in Hall, all timers. I mean, that team was loaded up, man, everywhere, everywhere. They had Shockey on that team, Portis, McGahee, Frank Gore. Kid Dorsey was an excellent college quarterback. Um, I mean, they were exceptional, exceptional players. Vilma, Shockey, Wolf. I mean, Vince Wilfork was a key cog in the Patriots uh, defense forever. And I'm just looking at something. Antrell Roll was a freshman. DJ Williams was a very good player for them. I don't think I need to explain Ed Reed. Okay, Sean Taylor, who passed away tragically, was murdered, was a exceptional player for them. But it's guys like Jonathan Vilma, who was a very good linebacker for them over time. But Vince Wilfork was a freshman on that team. They were loaded up. They were loaded up. And what are we going to say about this defense in the future? What are we going to say about Jordan's legacy and I don't really know what you'd call it. Jordan's mystique has grown over the last um, 6 months, and I don't know that his play on the field that is noticeable in a big way has increased, but his legacy, his shock value has certainly gone up. Um, N'Kobe Dean, when he was getting recruited, some of the coaches in the league would tell me, in the SEC would tell me that they would refer to him as Baby Roquan. I don't think he's as good as Roquan Smith, but he's as fast or faster. He's just not as physically large. He certainly could be a first round guy. So this defense can get beat up on. When you play, I mean, Kendrick is playing one on one. If you're playing a lot of one on one, you can get beat because you're playing one on one. It happens. But this is such. I didn't even talk about Lewis Seen. I'm sorry. Look over here, and this is the board. But Nolan Smith is coming into his own. Trayvon Walker. Listen, Trayvon Walker is. I'm trying to. I don't want to overstate. I mean, he is probably the most athletic player on Georgia's team. Just period. Like if you're going to go play basketball, you'd pick Trayvon Walker first. Maybe you'd pick George Pickens first. But Trayvon is as a gifted, a big guy that Georgia's had in a long time. I mean, he's Larry Brown from the late '90s, but more athletic, like more more gifted, which is really saying something. But this defense, they're trying to rip your head off. Hey, look, they are. I mean, not in an undisciplined way, but they are. Keely Ringo has played well this year over time. It's not been perfect, but he's played well over time. But listen, it gets back to guys like there's two guys I think that are if you're going to take a look at this Georgia defense and why are they successful as a Jordan Davis, Chris Smith. They both 4-year players, seniors now. They were not superstars coming in. Now, superstars, I mean, Jordan was not a top 300 player. Chris was not a top 300 player in terms of consensus. And when you look at them and their last 2 years or 18 months, I mean, Chris Smith's the reason why Georgia's undefeated right now, very specifically. You can't narrow it down like that, but he is the reason why they are undefeated. If Chris doesn't take that ball back from DJ Uiagalelei, I mean Georgia probably wins that game, but there's not a certainty that they win that game, and they might win it 6-3. But Chris Smith, a guy from South Atlanta or Mid Atlanta, whatever you want to call it, uh, who went to Athens with the expectations were limited, I guess you could say. People thought he was good, but they didn't know he would be unbelievable. But, and I'm not saying he is, but what you have are really smart, solid players that their last 2 years seemingly explode. Well, they've been dealing. I mean, Chris has been working up there for what since Zamir and James Cook. So 4 years. The first 2 years, no one paid attention. And people paid attention to Jordan just because he was so big, I think. And there were some really hellified players in that Georgia secondary. But Chris stuck with it, played over time. I mean, he's a lot like Tay Crowder in the development range. I mean, Tay was probably even considered a lower prospect than Chris Smith. But it just shows that if they have the measurables, which Chris did for sure, and obviously Jordan did, and if they stick with what they're supposed to do, not overeat and not do dumb stuff off the field, then their time you will develop over time. And you've seen that with these guys. And then they have 4 years invested into this thing. Jordan, Devontae, Adam Anderson, Quay Walker, Channing Tindall, Chris Smith. They are all 4 year players. And you can throw Rochester in there too, who's not really playing that I've seen. But that's 7 guys that consistently play on this defense who are, you know, getting the job done. I don't know if they're as gifted as the group from Miami in 2001. I don't know if they're better than Alabama in 2010. I'm not sure if I'm qualified to say that. But I do know that what's happening now is you have a real program at Georgia. You have hey, these guys got to get in the system. They got to do the work literally every day. It's a total cliche. But if they just do the work every single day, they have the ability their last 2 years to really explode and have careers in the NFL, or at least get that payday at the beginning. You know, I don't know how much you had to develop N'Kobe Dean or Lewis Cine, but excuse me, Lewis Cine, but or Trayvon Walker, but they have been getting developed, and those guys were better prospects than Chris Smith. But it does all the sum of the parts. You know, it's really like trying to push through sand. It's hard. One little piece of sand isn't that big of a deal, but you try to shove your way through sand. Obviously, you're walking on it if you're at the beach. And these guys have made it to where it's been no day at the beach for anybody that they've played. All right, we'll see you over the website, dogpost.com.